it's Trisha. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am hopping along with Altenew for their Whimsical Wonder release. This release is packed with gorgeous stamps, dies, embossing folders, and more. For this project, I'm going to be using this brand new Bouquet of Love stamp and die set, which has this gorgeous big bunch of flowers that's already grouped together for you, so you don't have to arrange or worry about composition. And as always, they have all of this inspiration in the trifold insert in the packaging. So there's a million ways you could use this. You could emboss with this and do emboss resist technique, which is what I'm going to do. You could watercolor it or use your Copics or any coloring medium that you like. All different kinds of options with a big floral like this. And when I say big, this is big. So this sheet of paper that I have here is my Neenah Solar White, and that's what I typically use for a card panel. It's just a little bit smaller than an A2, and you can see that this stamp is larger, considerably larger than this panel, which is fine because you can choose to use portions of the stamp. However, I wanted to just use a half sheet of paper and use the whole thing and then decide where I wanted to trim this down. So I basically have just cut a piece of Neenah Solar White in half, and I have it in my MISTI, and I'm inking up my stamp with Versamark ink, prepping my paper with some magic powder bag, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down. Give it some good pressure because there's lots of fine detail. And then I'm just embossing this with white powder. And I'm going to use a nice hot heat tool so I don't warp my paper, and just melt all that powder and watch that beautiful image appear. So as I mentioned, my plan for this was to use the emboss resist technique and ink over the top of this beautiful bouquet. So I'm going to use various shades of color, and I just wanted to create stripes rather than try to ink in a pattern that followed the design, you know, like creating one color for the flowers and one color for the leaves. I thought I'm just going to create a background pattern and let that design pop through, let the stamped image pop through. So I'm taping off with some Post-it tape, just, you know, low tack repositionable tape. And I've selected a whole different array of peaches and pale yellows and pinks and oranges. All you can see them across the top of the screen there, and of course I'll have them all linked below, but just a bunch of coordinating colors that look real pretty together. And I am using a mini ink blending tool and some ink blending foams, and I'm just smushing a little bit of that ink onto the blending tool and dabbing it around on my glass mat, and then lightly applying that over my image in the exposed stripe. And I want to make sure I have enough ink down there that the white of my embossed lines is going to show through well, but I didn't want it to be real vibrant. I wanted it to stay pale. Now I can just keep moving my stripes down, so I'm going to lower my set of tapes down a little bit and then mask off the part that I just inked and vary the width of my stripes. So some are going to be really fat, some are going to be real skinny. And what it ends up kind of coming out to look like, you'll see when I get to the reveal, but it kind of almost looks like a striped beach towel. And honestly, it's making me want to sit poolside somewhere and wishing that I was at a resort somewhere sunny, maybe sipping on a margarita. That would be nice. So you can see I'm going with a much fatter stripe on this one. And the grid, if you have any sort of mat that you work on that has grid lines, that really helps a lot to keep the alignment. Just make sure that your paper is aligned with the perpendicular to the lines on your mat, and then you can put your tape across and line up the marks on either side, and you know you're going to have straight stripes every time. I hope I explained that right. That didn't seem like it came out right, but I think you can see what I'm doing. I'm continuing to work my way through these stripes. And if you're interested in the colors that I choose or any of the products that I've used in this video, you can certainly check out the links below. If you're new to my channel, Thank you so much for joining and visiting me for the first time. If you like what you see, be sure to check out some of my other projects, and I would love it if you would subscribe and like this video so I know what kind of content to continue creating. So there's one half of the panel. I kind of started in the middle and worked my way out to the edge, and you can see already, I don't know if you guys are seeing that beach blanket, beach towel vibe, but that's what I'm seeing there. And then I'm just going to start at the middle again and work my way out to the other side. So didn't need to bore you with every single one of those stripes, so I've skipped right ahead here to my last couple and working my way out all the way to the edge. And I wasn't sure if I was going to trim this down, what I was going to do, so I just covered the whole panel. I do take a dry cloth, I'm not sure if I got it on film, but I do take a dry cloth and just sort of buff over the top of that embossed image, and that makes that white embossing line just pop and gets any stray ink off the top of that embossing. I took, this is like aqua shimmer pen, just in clear, and I am just kind of lightly going over the insides of these flowers just to drop a little bit of shimmer in there. It just catches the light. It kind of darkens the ink underneath it just a touch, but not real noticeably. And then when you twist this in the light, you just get a nice shimmer. So here I am playing with a die, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to cut this down on an angle, which would be real pretty like that, or off to one side. This is a stitched rectangle die that, again, is just smaller than an A2. Ultimately, what I decided is to leave this entire image intact, and or at least 99% of it, and make this into a 5x7 card. Sometimes I do larger format cards, and then I can just make my own envelope in a coordinating color using my envelope punch board. So here I am trimming it down and trying to keep it somewhat centered. And that is going to be the finished panel for the front of my card. And I still preserved, you know, a good representation of all those colors, and I love it. So for a 5x7 card, I don't normally keep those pre-made in my card base, so I don't keep those pre-made in my stash. So I am just cutting that, again, from slightly heavier. I'm using 110-pound Neenah Solar White, and I just cut that to 7x10, and then score it at 5 inches and give it a fold. So then I have a nice 5x7 card, and that panel will be just slightly smaller, leaving a nice white border all around. When I played around with it on the card base, I decided I wanted a very slight matting of coordinating colors. So I dug through my cardstock stash, and I found a peach that went real pretty with all the inks that I'm using. And I'm just going to put a little foam behind my inked panel and adhere that to the peach cardstock, and that'll create a nice little frame around my panel. I'm just using my liquid glue. You could use double-sided tape for this, or a tape runner, anything that you have on hand. And I'm sorry for the reflection. Normally I turn off that overhead light, and I think I forgot to shut that off when I was filming this, so you've got a little bit of reflection under there. I hope it's not too distracting. I apologize. When you use that liquid glue, make sure that you kind of hold that down for a second and give it a chance to dry in place. Maybe even put something heavy on top of it, and then that'll make sure that that adheres really well. You just need a minute of that. So now I am moving on to my sentiment, and I'm using a sentiment from the same set, and I love it. It says, "You have the most beautiful soul," and I just thought that was such a sweet, I mean, you could use that for someone's birthday. You could send it as a just because, or a miss you to a friend, or a thank you. I just thought it worked for so many occasions. Really nice. And I wanted to emboss that in gold just to add a little bit more bling to the card, but without the starkness of a black sentiment. I just thought the card panel was so bright and fresh. I just didn't want to add any black to it. So I'm using this gold embossing powder, and that's just going to play really nicely with these colors. I'm just doing it on white cardstock. And then I'll trim out my sentiment. You can see I've just trimmed right around, and I'm finding the best location for it. And I decide to put it up in the upper right. But I'm going to do the same thing with the sentiment that I did with the panel, which is to mat it on some coordinating cardstock just to give it a little definition. So I'm going to pop up my sentiment with some foam tape and use my grid lines to make sure I'm getting that straight and nestle that right into the image up in the upper corner. So it's not really covering the image too much. I feel like you can still see all the beautiful detail, but it feels like it's a part of it and connected to it. I'm finishing off the card with a couple of sequins and also some crystal drops that look like dewdrops. And if you ever have a sequin that has a hole in the middle and you don't like the hole, sometimes I don't mind it, but if you don't like that hole, you can put a little crystal drop right on top of the sequin and cover up the hole, and it looks great. It kind of gives you a layered bling effect. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm putting a little gold sequin, and then I'm taking a smaller sized crystal drop and putting it right on top of the sequin right in the middle. And that's it for this card. It was very simple, but I think very striking. I like that it's a big, bold size and you can see almost the whole image. And I love the fresh, springy stripes behind that real organic floral outline. So pretty. Thanks again for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you're checking out all the other stops and all the other awesome inspiration from the other designers on the blog hop. I sure would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you back real soon. Have a great day.